The Sport Clips Haircuts Head of the Class giveaway. Register for your chance to win a Razer laptop and more at sportclips.com/back-to-school and go straight to the head of the class with an MVP experience. So check in online today. No purchase necessary. 50 USDC age 18 plus. Ends 8/24/18.
This is the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast.
Trying to get you the heavy metal grind through your Wednesday morning. Glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. We, as always, are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests will join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You can get in touch with us through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed or call in 860-506-5505. Speaking of Brett Etymology's coming up a little bit later. We're excited about that. See if I can continue the hot streak that I've been on a little bit and figuring out the words and phrases and their origins. We'll get to that a little bit later. We'll also have a very special guest in just a few minutes who knows maybe more than anybody else just where Tiger Woods' game is. We'll get to that in a few seconds as well. But as always, Mike, we got to start the top of the hour with what we like to call What's Trending. And his game is trending, and that would be Ronald Acuna Jr. Another day, another leadoff homer, who led off the Braves' 10-6 win over the Marlins with a long ball. He would add another home run later in the game. He's now homered in 5 straight and 7 of his last 8.
It's ridiculous what he's doing right now. I just asked Brett, like elite home run hitters, how many at-bats per home run? He said around 12, you thought, right in that area there. Well, Acuna has 264 at-bats and 19 home runs. Quick math says that's in the area of 13.
And let me be clear, nobody does quick math better than you.
Nobody. You can check my math, Brett, but I think it's in the 13 area of every 13 at-bats. He's hitting a home run.
Yeah.
And from that leadoff spot, again, since he's taken on, and he's 20, so it's not like he's been a leadoff hitter for a long time.
No.
He has 12 home runs as a leadoff hitter. The other leadoff hitters for Atlanta combined this year have 10.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he is absolutely on fire with what he's doing. And, oh, by the way, the Braves are sitting atop that division, 2 games clear of the Phillies at this point.
Yep. And again, the record for most consecutive games with a home run hit in Major League Baseball history is 8. 3 players have done that. I think it was in the 60s or 50s, Dale Long of the Pirates, Don Mattingly in 1986, if I'm not mistaken, and Ken Griffey Jr., the 3 people that have done that, and he's 3 home runs and 3 games away from tying that mark. We continue with what's trending, and not a great look for Ben Roethlisberger and his health, but also not maybe too much of a concern.
No, at this point, when you hear of a quarterback going in concussion protocol at practice, I'm sure a lot of people are saying, wait a minute, they have a cone of silence around them. You're not allowed anywhere near them to hit them. And
so how did this happen? It's kind of a freaky play.
How it happened was the goal line play was rolling right tackle Marcus Gilbert was blocking Keon Adams, the linebacker. They were engaged, and basically Roethlisberger basically ran into them and fell on the ground, and when he fell, his head hit the ground. That was it. That's what happened. Got up on his own, and there were teammates there that Ben said to them, I'm fine, I'm good, but he is in concussion protocol. I think the last time he was in that was 2015.
Yes.
He wasn't going to play this week anyway, so it's not like it's stopping that from going on, but something you don't want to hear from any player, let alone your quarterback, really. As I said, any player in the preseason to have to go through something like that.
Yeah, the last time you mentioned it was in 2015. It was a hit against Seattle. Michael Bennett tackled him in that game, and that was one of the things where it was sort of lauded as one of the first times a player basically took himself out of a game with the new concussion protocols. Basically, he didn't feel right, so he alerted the medical staff to it. And we made the point on NFL Live at the time. Obviously, depending on where you are in your career and where you are contractually, it's certainly a lot easier to do that when you have a $100 million contract and a couple of Super Bowl wins as opposed to a gunner on a special team squad.
That's exactly right.
I mean, not taking anything away from Ben for being smart there. We're just saying, look, that's a much easier decision for him to make.
There's a difference in mentality of knowing you can get back on the field as opposed to if you walk off the field, you may never get back on.
Exactly. Yep. So an interesting scenario coming up in the preseason. The last game of last season was the Super Bowl between the Eagles and the Patriots, where, of course, the Eagles shocked the world and won 41-33. And now week 2 of the preseason, guess who plays each other?
It would be the Eagles and the Patriots.
In Foxborough, by the way. Now, Lane Johnson, the fine right tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles, friend of the show, and has been on with us, and it was one of the guys that started the whole underdog thing, wearing the dog masks and all of that. He's been outspoken this offseason about how he feels about, hey, not everybody has to do it the Patriot way to win, blah, 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 blah. And let's just say he careth not what he hears from Patriots fans coming up in Foxborough this weekend.
When it was brought up to him, he may get some backlash from the fans. He said, I hope so. I hope they raise hell. Bottom line, he said, they can cuss me. They can say whatever they want. At the end of the day, I'm not blocking them. I'm blocking guys on the edge, so it really doesn't matter what they say. And you go back to the shots that you said. Basically, he talked about the Patriots said he'd rather win the one Super Bowl the way they had fun than the many Super Bowls that the Patriots won, talking about saying it's a fear-based organization and referred to their players as robots.
Yeah. No.
Patriot players as robots, don't do it. Don't do that, Lane.
Well, that would make them Skynet.
Enough. Yeah, we don't want that.
And that would be Belichick, the head of Skynet.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
See what happens?
2-2.
See what happens.
4.
Well, see, that's what happens, by the way, when you have consistent winners. Everybody's trying to take shots at the guys who are consistently winning and winning all the time. Someone who used to win all the time, all the time, was a guy who, many ways, performed like a robot during the heights of his career, and that would be Tiger Woods, who gave us that thrill ride Sunday at PGA. Yes, which was won by Brooks Koepka with a remarkable performance.
Yes, it was.
Absolutely. He won. There's no question about it, but there's also no question who moved the needle, and that was Tiger Woods. Again, Tiger Woods in golf is the needle. The final numbers were in, and Mike, 73% higher. It was 70 on the overnights, 73%
70
higher.
Again, understand this, people.
Yeah.
In the third round, 54% higher than the year before. In the final round, 73% higher than the year before. The last time they were that high was 2009, when some guy named Tiger Woods was doing his thing.
Exactly. So what
it is.
Exactly. So what was it like to be inside the ropes, watching that thrill show and seeing those throngs of St. Louis sports fans get out there and just scream their heads off at what was presumably a PGA championship? It seemed more like a rock concert or Lollapalooza with the crowds.
Yeah.
It was absolutely great. Well, no one would know that better than our next guest, Tiger's caddie, Joe LaCava, who joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Joe, thanks for being with us this morning. First and foremost, even though you guys didn't win, how much fun was that Sunday at Bellerive at the PGA?
Well, good morning, guys. I can't even tell you how much fun it was. My son came out for the weekend, and he said to me, Dad, is it always like this? And I said, no, this is bedlam out here. Yeah. I said, no, it was crazy. These guys haven't had a golf event or a big sporting event, I guess, in quite a while, and they were hungry for it, and they came out in droves, and they were fantastic.
You know, some of the things, Joe, that you don't see, even though we saw every one of Tiger's shot, there's still time away from Tiger. And with all those fans there, and listen, 99% of them are great. And we know there are the 1 or 2%ers that sometimes aren't. And the caddy, a lot of times your responsibility is keeping those people controlled around Tiger, which some people would say good luck at times. How was that? Did you have any issues with any of the people there through all that time?
Not at all. And you hit it right on the head. 99% of the guys and women are behind Tiger, pushing for Tiger. They want to see good golf in general. They're not anti the other guys, but they're certainly rooting for Tiger more so than the other guys. But funny you guys asked that question. The week before in Akron, I had a little incident with a guy who was harassing my guy on the 14th hole at Akron the last day outside the ropes, roughing him up pretty good. And I said, listen, bud, why do you got to go there? I said, everyone's having a good time. Everyone's pulling for Tiger. If you don't like the guy, that's one thing. But you don't need to be yelling at my guy and screaming negative stuff like that. And I said, at the end of the day, if you affect him in his performance there, it affects my bottom line. So he calls me a couple names, and I go back and forth with the guy. And I said, why don't you just leave? He goes, well, if you give me $25 for the ticket that I bought today, I'll leave. And I said, here you go. Here's $25.
Did he leave?
Did he leave? Yeah, no. So I whip out $25, and he starts to go down the 14th fairway towards the greens. I said, look, pal, 25 is 25. You got to head the other way. So he starts to head the other way. He goes 20 yards down the line. And he calls me a swear word. So I run 20 yards back the other way. We're going face to face with this guy. And all of a sudden, Tiger's looking for yards, and I'm in it with this guy 20 yards down the line. So some cop has to come in, push this guy out of the way, and takes him out of the tournament.
Good.
Well, that is awesome. What did Tiger say to you when you came back to give him yardage?
Well, it was a great question. We were so far to the right in the trees, and he was on his third shot, believe it or not, and we were still 150 yards away from the green. And he didn't really know what happened. He heard the commotion. He heard the guy yelling at him, because we talked about it after the fact. But he didn't really know how it developed. And he says, I was wondering what happened. He goes, normally you don't take that long to get yards. I said, well, a little incident down the road. he didn't have a problem with it. And actually, I got a standing ovation for kicking the guy out of there.
There you go. Nicely done. Hey, look,
right.
He gave you a number. That's the whole thing in negotiations. Exactly right. Give me a number, and we'll make it work. And that's exactly what it was. Joe LaCava.
I'll buy you out anytime, pal.
Joe LaCava with us. By the way, a Connecticut native who's been here his entire life, who's had a great career pre-Tiger, was with Freddie Couples for a long time. Right. Were you on his bag at the 92 Masters champion?
I'm showing my age, but yes, I was.
There you go. So he was there with Freddie in 92, then was with Dustin Johnson for a few years, right? World's number one, and now with the guy who was number one for longer than anybody, Tiger Woods. Listen, the thing that was amazing about us, Joe, watching that final round Sunday is that, as you well know, the front nine was a completely different dynamic depending on what was happening in Tiger's bag. From the tee, didn't hit a fairway. With an iron in his hand, it didn't matter. From a bunker, from the rough, it was a stripe show, his iron play. Did you see that iron play coming in the warm-up session? In
the warm-up session, he never missed an 8-iron, and they have TrackMan on the range. So, and again, we're all pretty good on the range. I get that part of it. But, his ball wasn't curving much on the range. He was dialed in. His forehand was going 218, 219, 220. The 8-iron was going 166, 167, 168, and dropping on the same 10, 8, or 10 in a row. So his irons were pretty dialed in. Over the weekend, he fought a little bit off the tee, but like you said, he made up for it from wherever he was and made the most of it. We go back to Saturday, the back nine. I'm telling you guys, I don't know if he hit quite as well as he did over the week on Sunday, but if he could drop a couple of those putts on Saturday, certainly would have made life a lot easier come Sunday. But all in all, it was a great iron play all weekend.
No, I agree with you, Joe, because I was watching that back nine. I think there were 5 or 6 straight greens where he had a birdie putt inside 20 feet and nothing dropped. I mean, people are like, the back nine gave him problems. I'm like, you were watching Saturday if you think that the back nine is – I mean, he hit those irons well. You're right, nothing dropped on Saturday. Yeah,
I mean, he literally – he couldn't – 10, he made a nice par, but he could have birdied 11 through 18, including an eagle. When I say could have, I mean, they're not all 10-footers and 8-footers, but he had a shortish one on 12. I mean, he basically had a 7-footer right edge on 14, and then he had a great look for eagle on 17. So you're right. I mean, he could have shot 30, 32, probably would have been realistic on that back nine on Saturday night, shooting even par, and that was the difference come Sunday. But that tells you how good he was hitting the irons both days.
Talking to Joe LaCava, Tiger Woods caddy since 2011. Again, caddy for Freddie Couples for more than 20 years as well. Dustin Johnson as well, as Trey had mentioned. So take us inside the ropes a little bit where we'll never be able to go. And when Tiger is struggling off the tee like that, and really for any caddy, for any golfer, that relationship of what's the conversation when you hear announcers saying, or people on Twitter, Joe's got to take that driver and snap it over his knee and not let him use it. What goes on? What are those conversations when the struggle is off the tee, or really anywhere on the course?
That's a great question, Mike. For example, on Sunday, we get up there on number 9, and he's got a 2-iron in his hand, not a very hard fairway to hit. And I basically just kind of whispered to him over the tee because I don't want to make a big deal of it. I said, look, let's just try to find some rhythm and timing, take that range swing here and hit this fairway. And I had to kind of, make a light moment of it. I said, it can't be that hard. I think I could hit this fairway. And so, of course, sure enough, he follows up probably with the worst tee shot of the morning. I mean, hit it way left, almost out of bounds. And that's when he says, I can't swing with the shirt on. It's sticking to me. It was all hot. As you know, he went through 3 shirts a day because it was so hot down there. So he ends up changing the shirt, and that's when he hit that 9-iron to about 10 feet. I'm not saying that's the reason he started playing decent golf after that, but it's funny. You have to say certain things to these guys, and sometimes you have to make light of it because, we hadn't hit a fairway. Sometimes I joke, so that Tiger can hear going down certain holes, I'll joke to the other caddy. I said, how are the fairways? Are they in good shape today? And so, you just try to make a little bit of a light of it. I haven't seen a fairway, you know what I mean?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, you didn't get the first fairway till 10. I mean, it was unbelievable. Okay, but that round, Joe, was in many ways vintage Tiger because, as you said, on that front side, you're 3 under par, and he didn't hit a fairway. To me, that shot on 7 might have been the defining. I get it. He dropped it on the pin on 1, 2, and 3, and he missed the shorty on 1, but made him on 2 and 3. But when you hit it so far left on 7, and then he ropes that, what was it, a 9-iron or 8-iron to within 15 feet, and made that birdie putt, I think that's when he got the first big fist pump. Did it feel like that really got his round going that day?
I think, well, yes. I mean, I think the first couple holes he played very well, and we got kind of lucky on 2 when it didn't go in the water.
Right.
But I think the saves on 4 and 5 were huge to keep the round going because those are the toughest holes on the front 9. So I think making, pars on 4 or 5. Like I said, it's early on, but you sort of want to make bogeys after you made a couple birdies early. Could have birdied the first 3 holes, birdied 2 of the first 3, but you wouldn't want to follow with 2 bogeys and even par in the 6th tee, which is a tough hole as it is. So I think the par stays on 4 and 5 were huge to keep the momentum going.
Even though, Joe, you were out on the course when you weren't Tiger's caddy, you saw kind of how it could be or was with him when he was at the top of his game. But when you took his bag in 2011, at what point from that point on, when you were responsible for him, when you first really realized, wow, this is so different than anybody else for what you have to deal with everything that goes along with Tiger Woods?
Right. Well, one of the reasons that I look back and say, man, I'm glad that I took the job or got the opportunities because his ball just makes a different sound on the range. These guys are all phenomenal. They all hit it great. Obviously, all hit it flush. But there's a different sound when you stand behind him and watch him hit balls on the range. So that's kind of the reason I went with Tiger and always wanted to work for the guy. But going back a little bit even further, I worked for Fred for 21 years. The crowds weren't nearly as big back in the day. But Fred did have the biggest of all the crowds. So I was used to all that kind of stuff. But now you have a different era where everyone's got a phone, people are moving around, they all want to take a video, so on and so forth. So it can be bedlam in a good way out there, but there is a lot to the job in terms of crowd control and stuff like that. But again, back to what you guys said earlier, 99% of the people are are rooting for the guy and in his corner. So it's easy because they're not bad, but it's just a lot of movement, a lot of running around, a lot of cameras going off, stuff like that. So there's a lot to do with the crowd control and stuff like that today.
Yeah, there's certainly more static around whatever group Tiger
Correct.
is, and you have to be able to deal with all that as Tiger Woods caddy Joe LaCava is with us. Now, I want to ask you specifically about 18, Joe, because I think at that point, after making a miraculous par on 17 when his ball was in the hazard, by not making birdie on 17, I think you guys had to realize, okay, we're not going to win this thing. Yet when he made the birdie on 18, he let loose with an unbelievable fist pump. Was that just because, A, it was a great birdie to close out what was a stellar week for him at the PGA? B, was it because he realized he had just shot a 64 on a Sunday at a major, something he had never done before? Or was it potentially C, this weekend in the final 3 rounds, maybe finally was the mental hurdle for him to say, I can do this again and I can win a major again?
I think a little all of the above. I don't think he realizes that he's shooting 64 at the time. I don't think he thinks at the time it's his lowest career round in a major. I think, after he hit the shot in there on 18, he looked at me and goes, all I can do is make the putt. That's the best we can do. As if to say, basically back to your point, it's probably over, but in case it's not, I got to still make the best score I can possibly make on this hole. And obviously everyone wants to end on a good note after making, like you said, a relatively average par on the hole before. So I think it was just sort of one of those things where let's finish the day in the right way, make a 3, and that's the best score I can do at this point. And I did it, and that's what he's happy with.
Joe LaCava joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Been Tiger Woods caddy since 2011. All right, Joe, I have 3, a little more on the quicker side questions for you.
Sure.
True or false? You once beat Tiger in a game of horse.
Correct. True.
Did you smoke him, or was it close?
8 in a row.
Hey, there you go.
Wow.
And how upset was he?
Not happy. He didn't talk to me for 24 hours, wasn't invited for the meal that night.
That is awesome. All right, Tiger, we always know wears red on Sundays. Do you have any superstitions?
I don't, and I stay away from red and black on Sunday, that's for sure. No superstitions.
Yeah.
And last but not least, have you booked off the end of September in France as a trip?
Wow, that's a great question. I have no plans for that week. Let me put it that way.
we love.
By the way, for those that may not know, that's when the Ryder Cup is.
Right, and Tiger's 11th in the standings. 8 automatically make it. By the way, Joe, I don't know if you saw Jim Furyk's press conference yesterday Monday talking about because everyone wanted to talk about Tiger. Is he going to be on the cup and on the team? And Jim, to his credit, is like, I'm here to talk about the 8 guys. And well, he certainly is trending in the right direction.
Right.
He was doing everything he could to not answer the question without answering the question.
Right. No, and again, I don't know. I don't know any more than anybody else knows. But here I'll play the Captain Obvious role. I'd like to think he's going to be picked. He's playing better than most guys outside the top 8. So I mean, come on, let's be honest. It's probably a no-brainer.
There you go. And the other thing is, listen. Come in 2019. Are we talking about 15th major for Tiger Woods? Do you think it's happening?
He's. I don't want to use his phrase trending in the right direction, but I don't see why not. I mean, he's playing well. He's got a lot of confidence right now. And I think, obviously, being in the mix of these big tournaments proves to him that he can get it done and certainly compete with these young guys that are all playing very well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was just great to see him interacting with the fans. In between the tees, giving high fives.
Yeah.
That was a sign to me that Tiger was loving this as much as everybody else was, which was very cool.
Very, very cool to see.
He definitely seems to be enjoying it more for sure, guys.
Yeah. Joe, best of luck in the upcoming tournaments. I know the FedEx, and then enjoy your trip to France as well.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we'll be at the Northern Trust. We'll look for you there. Maybe we'll take a game of horse with you.
You got it.
Golic
and Wingo.
And Wingo.
Mm-hmm. Trey Wingo and Mike Golic Sr. Let's bring in SEC Network's Paul Finebaum, who joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. The Paul Finebaum Show weekdays from 3 to 7 on ESPN Radio and Sirius XM Channel 81. Paul, what was your immediate takeaway from what you heard from not only the athletic director, but from Maryland President Wallace Lowe yesterday?
I thought President Lowe had the right tone, and yes, you are correct. It was late, but on the other hand, without the ESPN report, the university had already moved on. Don't forget that Damon Evans was named full-time athletic director while this was all being investigated, and while many are questioning or praising Damon Evans, you have to take a good look at how he got this job. In 2010, Damon Evans was fired as athletic director at the University of Georgia after police pulled him over in Atlanta and cited him for DUI while he had a woman in his car that was not his wife. And I say this because I'm quoting from the police report. There was he also had a pair of red panties between his legs, and he lied to his superiors at the time. He was summarily fired. It took him a long time to regain his foothold in the industry, and he finally got this job while this was going on. I say that because he has credibility issues in the past. He still was named the athletic director by President Lowe. Now, moving beyond that issue, what we have seen and what the president expressed yesterday was the correct thing to say at this point in time. This is an outrageous miscarriage of justice, and there is simply no way to allow DJ Durkin to remain as the head football coach. This is his program. These are his hires. He brought these individuals in to change the culture, and this is the result. Therefore, he should be held accountable.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I think Trey does as well. We don't think there's any way once this investigation goes forward in the group that President Lowe got together that Durkin is going to survive this at all. Or Wes Robinson, the head trainer. I'm somewhat shocked he still has a job. We unfortunately, Paul, have seen and read about and gone through a lot of scandals, all of us, that have gone on in college sports. I don't recall seeing such incredible just lack of preparation at all for an athlete who is hurting, in this case, for the heat and the tired, and what was not done. There's a lot of people, people that are at fault, but for what was not done in this day and age, where in 2001, Corey Stringer from the Minnesota Vikings died of heat stroke, and the advances that we've made, how surprised were you when you just started to hear that the things that just weren't done in this situation?
Well, you have to be surprised, Mike, and I'll just give you an example. We were watching some of the coverage last night, my wife and I, and she's a physician, and she was literally, she had not paid much attention to this until now, and she was screaming at the television because, you don't have to be a certified trainer at this level to understand this. Common sense indicates that they did all the wrong things, and that's what I can't understand. And I know a lot of people are getting hung up on it, but there's no disputing that the people on the scene terribly erred, and that brings you back to the culture. And Mike, I'll defer to you on this, but when you there are quotations out there from Durkin of why he brought in the people he brought in. He brought them in to change the culture. You've been part of programs like that. You've seen this. You've had children part of programs like this. That's one of the first things coaches do. Everyone wants to look at Alabama and why is Nick Saban successful? Because a lot of people give credit to his strength and conditioning coach, Scott Cochran. But that's how you start a program. So if you're changing the culture, you're going to be held responsible for the culture. But back to the initial question, this is a textbook case of how to do something wrong and incorrect. And I'm not saying it's simple, because it's not. I mean, you're talking about a hot day, and athletes are competing and running and working out at a high level. But this death should have been avoided, and that was what President Lowe said yesterday. And that will be, unfortunately, the tag of this entire story.
No, absolutely. As Paul Finebaum is with us from the SEC Network and the Paul Finebaum Show. So we know there's going to be, listen, when this thing is done, there's going to be massive changes at the University of Maryland. And rightfully so, because A, of what happened to Jordan McNair and the things that weren't done to him from a medical perspective, and then B, the culture, if those allegations in the ESPN.com article are proved true, there's no way DJ Durkin can survive that. The question then going forward, Paul, what ramifications, if any, do you think this will have for other programs seeing what happened at Maryland?
Well, there has to be a trickle effect and a chilling effect on college football across the board. And I think that's another subset of what we've been talking about today and last week with Urban Meyer. I mean, in the aftermath of Urban situation, you know, and I know, every athletic director and every staff got together and talked about these issues. And this is even more at the forefront because of the loss of life. I'm not trying to equivocate one situation versus the other, but we are now in the final 2 weeks of fall training. Most of the heavy lifting has been done, but in my mind, you're going to have a lot of serious conversations between head coaches and their strength and conditioning people, and saying, listen, are we doing it right? Or are we doing it correctly? And I suspect you're going to see some coaches have their people take the foot off the pedal a little bit, because this is too serious right now. And anytime a story like this becomes at the forefront, it's going to come out somewhere else. I mean, already today, you've seen the report of Jabril Peppers talking about Durkin at Michigan, this is his reputation. I was reading a story today about the competitive nature of Durkin, that he was a longtime staffer under Jim Harbaugh. He said they played when they were together at Stanford, Harbaugh and Durkin played a one-on-one basketball game that went for 90 minutes. There were no fouls called, and Harbaugh was quoted later saying that there was plenty of blood on the floor. I mean, that's the competitive nature of people. We know Jim Harbaugh, we know football coaches, but that doesn't read very well in the aftermath of a death when Durkin is at the head of this particular program.
No doubt, as Paul Finebaum joins us, no doubt that line, and as you mentioned, I was part of it, my kids were part of it, the line can be very blurred of competitive nature to stepping over the line. As far as where we are going to assess blame here and guilt, we heard the president clearly define that this was on the training staff, not the coaching staff. As far as where this ends up, Paul, should Wallace Lowe, the president, and Damon Evans, the AD, be held responsible and disciplined for this?
Well, that's interesting, because Lowe is ultimately the CEO of the school, although he did make it clear he appointed this committee. I think Lowe he's 72 years old, so I'm not sure his future is terribly in doubt. But I think Damon Evans is really at the center of this. Can you trust this man to lead your program through a crisis while he was at the interim position of running that athletic department while it was going on? I think there are going to be a lot of calls for his dismissal as well. The president's a little trickier, and I know that he's ultimately the president of the university, but I find it difficult to blame the president who's sitting across campus in an ivory tower about something that happens in an off-season workout. But in the end, I think they'll all be gone. And that is, you can quibble about that, but it's hard to clean up a culture of a football program and of an athletic department when the same person is in charge. And the one thing that Damon Evans said yesterday that really did irritate me is when he said that, I was unaware of this. Mike, if you're the athletic director or even the assistant athletic director on a campus, you know what's going on. And by the way, if you don't, you should. That's part of your job, is to walk around every day to see what's happening at basketball practice, at lacrosse practice, and especially at a football practice or a basketball practice. And for him to act like he didn't know, then that he may have answered his own question or your question about whether he should remain.
Well, that's going to be the thing going forward. They have this committee that they've set up, and we'll find out what the end result will be in September. But I think we all have a pretty strong idea about where this is headed. Paul, we appreciate you being with us this morning. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul.
Always a pleasure, guys. See you soon.
Golic.
I tell you what, a great sports night last night. Yeah. No doubt about it.
And Wingo.
What a day, what a show, what a time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Support for the Golic and Wingo Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying homes for a minute. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a whole lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about it. They're calling it the power buying process, and here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. You win either way. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Golic. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data record. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Ow. Yep, you guessed it. I'm a speed bump, so I've got one job. I slow you down. So imagine how I feel about Geico, who does way more. Like, not only could they save you money on car insurance, but they've been around for over 75 years, giving people fast and friendly claim service. Ow. Plus, they got a nifty mobile app that gives you 24/7 access. Ow. Just doing my job, buddy.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
I had a roommate at Notre Dame who had piranhas. We would cut ourselves on the finger and put our bloody finger in the thing.
Why? They ever nipped it?
Oh, they tried to, but I have all 10 digits, so they didn't do it well enough.
Jungle cat
They
reflexes.
weren't quick enough.
That's the first time they've ever seen Golic was quicker than anybody. He was faster than the piranha.
Woo!
Nip.
Boy, college makes you dumb. Sports Center brought to you by Valspar Stain. Just a reminder, if doing your deck is on your to-do list this summer, put new Valspar Stain on your shopping list. That way you can get all weather protection and more inspiring color. Valspar exterior stains only at Lowe's.
All right, Golic and Wingo here with you. Normally at this time we play Brettomology, but we're a little short on time, and we don't want to short our great researcher Brett in one of the great segments in the long and illustrious history of this show.
There you go.
So we're going to do that in about 10 or 15 minutes. We're going to do Brettomology. But we had to get to some of these stories, Mike. Nothing is sacred anymore. Okay?
No, it's not.
First of all, this is why robot technology is taking over the world, because a 6-year-old can now scam their parents.
How about that?
A 6-year-old secretly ordered $350 worth of toys off Amazon. Not only did she do that, she was smart enough to do the one-day delivery option, so all these toys came the next day,
and
that's
cost a lot.
And that's how the parents found out about it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Was it $350 again in one day? Are you kidding me? A 6-year-old.
Yeah.
A 6-year-old.
So that's a problem.
Shame on the parents for that one.
Correct. How about this? A bingo caller at a center in Westchester County arrested for gaming fraud.
Yeah.
Is accused of manipulating the results of the weekly contest held at the Yorktown Jewish Center.
Bingo!
So you can't trust a 6-year-old with Amazon. You can't trust what goes on at a gaming center. And then maybe the worst.
This is unreal.
Of all of this. And these are my people. I'm from Fairfield County, so I understand the dollars involved here.
This is New Canaan, Connecticut. This is where
the Gold Coast, baby.
This is where like kindergarten will cost you like $50,000 a year.
Correct. Nothing comes cheap.
Holy
including
smokes.
the crimes by cafeteria workers. Lunch money. They stole almost $500,000 in lunch money in New Canaan, Connecticut.
Again, they're the lunch ladies, and at the register when they're taking the money, they're putting some in and taking a little bit out. Putting some in, taking a little bit out. And from 2012 to 2017, they took out nearly $500,000 in cash.
Listen, man, nothing comes cheap in Fairfield County, I'm telling you. So that's why you need to be careful, even with the lunch lady.
Somebody stole all our lunches.
Who would steal 30 bag lunches?
You just got to be careful.
Sloppy Joes. I made them extra sloppy for you.
That's a nice lunch lady making the sloppy joes. Okay.
They turned themselves in over the weekend and were released on $50,000 bond, which I'm assuming they had from the $500,000 that they stole in lunch money.
Easily had the money to pay that bond.
It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
So again,
they were accused of underreporting how much cash they had been collecting. Yeah, because it was sticking in their hand.
Correct. So you can't trust lunch workers, you can't trust bingo, and you can't trust your 6-year-old with a computer. My God, where are we? Golic and Wingo presented by Progressive Insurance. Who?
Robots.
Right. Yeah, let's trust those guys. They're going to be the end of us. Let's drive the self-driving car.
Yeah.
Go over there. It's called the Recyclable Center for Humans.
Oh.
We're going to make you into something else.
Oh.
Be afraid, people. Be very afraid. Coming up, a quarterback that has some issues, and we have Bretomology. It's all ahead on a robot-free Golic and Wingo.
Golic and Wingo.
It was all sort of one big giant Jell-O mold.
It's very interesting where that went.
And now it's time for the greatest segment in the history of radio.
It's the game show segment that's captivating a nation.
The origin is Latin, and it has been sort of corrupted over time.
Like this show.
Making everyone that hears it smarter.
In the 1800s, English authors were likely to partake in opium den activities.
Now, with your host, researcher Brett.
Take a guess where that came from. Brett's got your answer.
It's Bretomology.
Here are the categories. Words and their meanings. That's straightforward.
Bretomology is brought to you by Discover Card, who will match all the cash back new card members earn at the end of their first year. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations do apply.
Limitations always apply, but there's no limitation to the knowledge that researcher Brett brings to Bretomology. Again, here are the official standings. He's going to come up with 4 phrases. What is the origin? One of them is real. One of them is not real. And we have to figure out which one is which. Ryan Hollins is the only perfect guy that's ever played Bretomology.
Well, it's 4 for 4.
Did it one time. Yeah, one time, 4 for 4. Jason Fitz, solid 75% out of a small sample, 8 of 12. Mm-hmm. I'm at almost 70%, 69%, nice. 36 for 52. Junior's at 53%, 21 for 40. You are smack down the middle, big boy.
I am. I'm average.
50%, 26 for 52. Mina Kimes, Chris Canty, Adnan are all 2 for 4. And bringing up the field, Jeff Saturday and Field Yates are 1 for 4 at 25%.
Feel free to use these later in the day or this weekend somewhere at the bars if you want.
Win a bet. Win some money.
Win a drink, win some bucks, whatever you can.
All right, Brett, here we go. What is the first phrase we are delving with?
You know, guys, I'm really excited today because we have a special edition of Bretomology. Bretomixology.
Oh, yeah.
Mixology.
I like it.
These are all drink origins.
Golic, you're screwed.
Number 1, Moscow Mule.
Oh, it's my favorite drink.
Golic's favorite drink?
Yes.
Was it a product of savvy entrepreneurship? Russian businesswoman Sophie Berezinski arrived in the U.S. in the spring of 1947 looking to expand the international business of the Moscow Copper Company. She approached New York City bartender George Simmons with an opportunity. Create a cocktail to be served in a copper mug, and he would get a cut of that summer's sales. The creation, named by Simmons joking about his role as a copper mule, was so popular that Berezinski sold all 5,000 mugs in her U.S. inventory that summer. Or was it an exercise in supply and demand? Smirnoff executive John Martin was having trouble drumming up demand for vodka in the United States. Then one night in 1941, he walked into Jack Morgan's bar in Los Angeles. The bartender had a basement full of ginger beer to get off his hands, so they joined forces to create this cocktail, which was served in a copper mug because Morgan's girlfriend at the time owned a copper goods company.
I feel pretty strongly about this, and where are you going?
I don't think we ever had a problem with drinking vodka. So I'm going with 1.
Well, yeah, first of all, when has that happened ever?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Really?
It's more of a recent trend, perhaps.
Yeah.
But I think, having been a Moscow Mule connoisseur over the years, I think I've heard the story about Sophie before, so I think it's 1 as well.
Cliff likes 1, too. We're going 1.
1. Everybody's going 1.
Number 2.
Wow!
Smoked.
Is it really?
It is. Your next drink, Negroni.
Yes, Negroni.
A Negroni.
Never heard of it.
It's a gin-based drink. It's very good.
Okay.
Was its origin attributed to a former rodeo clown? In Florence in 1919, the most popular aperitif, that's a pre-dinner drink, of course, was the Americano, which was Campari, vermouth, club soda, and orange peel. Count Camillo Negroni, a world traveler who had recently spent time in the U.S. as a rodeo clown, entered a bar and asked for a stronger version of the Americano. So the bartender subbed out the club soda for gin, and the drink was named after the patron who ordered it. Or was it an evolution of a classic cocktail? The Negroni is an Italian descendant of the Martini. Due to German battleships stationed around Europe during World War I, it was nearly impossible for Italy to import gin from England. So in an effort to ration the supply in his bar in Milan, Luca Cassoni created his own variation of the Martini with the same gin and vermouth base, but with Italian liqueurs Campari and Averna mixed in. Because Averna gave the drink a blackish color, he named the drink a Negroni.
Listen, I think I've heard this. I'm going with one.
You thought you heard the first one.
I know. I thought I had heard. I'm going with one.
I'm going with two because if it's not two, it's one of the greatest made-up ones we've had.
We're going with two because Devin says rodeo clowns are poppycock.
All right.
Number one, the rodeo clown.
He's the smart guy now.
Yeah, there we go.
Smoked.
Your next beverage.
Loser. By the way, again, let me just applaud you, Brett. That made-up number two was ridiculously good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Your next beverage is a Mai Tai.
Okay.
Was it from Victor Bergeron, better known as Trader Vic? Bergeron opened a Polynesian-themed restaurant in Oakland, California, and it was at that original Trader Vic's that he made the cocktail in 1944. Bergeron first whipped up the drink while looking to impress a pair of friends visiting from Tahiti with his 17-year-aged Jamaican rum. When the first friend tasted it, she reportedly yelled, "Mai Tai Roa Ae," which translates to "out of this world." He shortened it to Mai Tai and later wrote that, quote, "anyone who says I didn't create this drink is a dirty stinker." Or is it from the French Polynesian Tourism Board? When their first international airport opened in 1954, they tasked a local chef with creating the drink while stipulating that it needed to tell the story of their republic. So, the ingredients of the drink are all things that French, Spanish, and English explorers had introduced to the islands over the previous 300 years. Rum, orange curacao, orgeat syrup, and lime juice. The word Mai Tai means good in Tahitian, and it remains the official alcoholic beverage of French Polynesia.
I'm going with two. I don't know why I went with two last time and it sounded good. Two sounded good to me again. I'm going with two.
No, I'm going with one.
Oh, God.
I'm going with one.
What do you guys think?
Jerry likes two, but Devin says let's go with Wingo because he's hot. We're going one.
Number one, Trader Vic.
There you go. Smart Come on, Devin. Bubble Boy. Let's go.
Your final drink.
All right, what is it?
Bloody Mary.
Okay.
Is it from Harry's New York Bar in Paris, the most famous cocktail bar in the world in the early 1900s?
Harry's New York Bar in Paris.
Correct.
Yeah.
It was actually a bar that they shipped out to Paris piece by piece.
Yeah, there's also one in Venice, if I'm not mistaken.
Bartender Ferdinand Petiot created the drink after much experimentation in the early 1920s, using newly introduced vodka from Russian refugees and tomato juice from American expats still abroad after World War I. It was initially named the Bucket of Blood, but was later renamed the Bloody Mary after Mary Tudor, the Queen of England, who sported the same nickname 4 centuries earlier. Or is it from Ernest Hemingway? Well, sort of. Mary was the name of Hemingway's third wife, whom he was married to from 1933 to 1940 and reportedly spent the entire marriage drunk. During this time, he frequented the King Cole Bar at the St. Regis Hotel in New York, where the signature drink was a tomato juice and vodka concoction called a Red Snapper, one of the many creations of legendary bartender Peter Rubin. Hemingway reportedly introduced the drink in Hong Kong in the 1940s, and he renamed it as a jab at his ex-wife. He wrote that the Bloody Mary, quote, did more than any other single factor except the Japanese army to precipitate the fall of that crown colony.
So I think last time around we some were answering because there were too many number ones, so they went to number two. I think Brett took that to heart because all three have been number one, I believe.
No, the first one was two, right?
First one was number two.
Yeah. All right, never mind.
That's a great theory, though.
Over. By the way, who's writing this up here? Because they have me now at 29 for 59, which is clearly under 50%.
We haven't updated the percentages yet. It'll be okay.
I was at 50%. Now I'm at 52. You obviously changed that to 52% when it's clearly under 50%. So don't give me an excuse. You messed up, right?
You're just mad because you're 0 for 3.
You're messed up.
Don't take it out of me because you can't get one right.
Number one.
I feel like the Bloody Mary is like a staple drink that's been around a lot longer than when Ernest Hemingway would do this. Although, if anybody knew a cocktail, it was Ernest Hemingway. I think I'm going to go with number one as well.
What do you guys think?
Room, what do you think?
Devin wants to keep riding with Wingo.
Right.
That's so cheap. You know what? Grow up. Yeah, what is it?
It is number one.
Yeah! There you go! Bubba boy! There we go. Hey, congratulations.
Who's the smart guy now?
You avoided the collar. You saved it in the final at bat. You were a Kirk Gibson that pulled one out there when you were just limping up to the plate and you made contact and you saved it. Congratulations.
They are so wrong. I was at 50%, okay? And I went 1 for 3.
Yeah.
I am no longer at 50%. And you have me at 30. You're an idiot, Dan. You're an idiot, okay?
Let's just say that the wrong standings may have been read before. We had updated standings. You're 30 for 60. You went 1 for 4.
All right.
But I wasn't that before we did this.
You were like 52%.
So what you wrote up before was wrong.
Yes. Either way, there was a mistake.
Either way, there was a mistake. You were wrong about something.
It's a word segment, not a math segment, you guys.
Well, you know my feeling on this.
It's my understanding that there would be no math.
The only thing I have left to hang my hat on is simple math, okay?
And you've nailed it.
Because it's not Bretomology.
By the way, if I didn't get at least 3 out of 4 in drinking, I would have been so mad at myself.
True. You are the drinker of the group.
Just play to your strengths, baby.
Yep.
Golic and Wingo.
Let's not expect too much. There's only one person out there that's expecting way too much out of this guy too early. We know who that is. It's his father.
It's a normal day. You're rushing out the door to get to work on time when suddenly, there it is, the dreaded service light. So what is it this time? Tire pressure, low coolant, time for an oil change? When it comes to service lights, head to Jiffy Lube. We've got you covered. Drive in today and make the switch to Pennzoil. Ask for Pennzoil Synthetics, getting you back on the road in a jiffy. Jiffy Lube, leave worry behind.
Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our phone guest joined us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. By the way, before we get into this football discussion, which is a very interesting one, did you see what Matt Chapman did, the A's third baseman? Look, they're on a hot streak. Right?
Yes, they are.
11-2. They're within 1 of the division lead, not the wild card. Now the 1 game of the division lead. He's basically saying to fans, "Please watch us." He put out a statement saying, "I just want to use this time to encourage people in Oakland to come out, man," the 25-year-old star said on the A's telecast following their win Monday night. "All the fans and support we can get, we can really appreciate it. Tonight we're fighting till the very end against the Mariners, and I just wish we can get some support out here, man. We're fun to watch. We really want our fans to come out and support us. It'd be great."
By the way, they are third to last in attendance.
Yeah.
The only 2 teams behind them, the Rays and the Marlins.
That's bad. That is bad.
So
they're on pace for 97 wins, and Matt Chapman's basically saying, "Guys, we're actually good at this. Come out and watch us."
Now, I think I will say I don't think it was third to the bottom when my Indians have been playing extremely well and going. They haven't had the greatest, I don't think, attendance in the world. Brett, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but the last couple of years, because I think we had been talking about the same thing, the Indians doing well and people, kind of show up. But for Oakland, it's really bad right now being third last.
Yeah.
Indians are 22nd this year. Last year they were 22nd. Yeah. I mean, that's got to be better than that.
Guys, we're really good. You'll like us. Come watch us. So, hey, why not? I mean, I'm telling you, we talked about this earlier. It's an interesting story. If somehow they win that division and Houston doesn't, and then the Yankees got to face either Verlander or Dallas Keuchel in a 1-game playoff, that ain't what you're looking for the New York Yankees in any way, shape, or form, especially after we saw what happened in Games 6 and 7. Granted, that was in Houston of the ALCS a year ago. Okay, so we're getting ready for week 2 of the NFL's preseason. Begins Thursday night on ESPN, Washington taking on the Jets. They've been having some combined practices together, and count Josh Norman among those very impressed with the Jets rookie quarterback Sam Darnold.
You go out here and you see him make these throws, I'm like, all right, that's not so much of a college level throw. This little kid is not making mistakes. And he's really accurate. It's kind of like, dang. You know, you get rookies in here and you're trying to like mess with them and bait them a little bit and thinking that he's going to throw a route that, you know, you can make a play on, and he's not having it. And it's so crazy to see that at an early age.
Now, I will say this. I'm cynical enough to give Josh Norman all the credit in the world. If he's on the field, when Darnold's on the field, hey, man, butter him up, and then you could bring him down, right?
Exactly.
Like, lull them into a false sense of security. So I'm willing to go there with Josh, thinking that might be what he's doing. But he's not the only guy talking about this with Sam Darnold.
No, he's not. And again, when you see things in practice, and this is the joint practice with Washington, because we talk about the game where he did look good in the game, but a lot of them were short passes. Again, not his fault. That's where the plays were called, and I don't blame coaches for doing that to ease somebody in. You know, we had talked about players with a lot of upside coming in, and he was one of them. Had turnovers, no doubt about it. Sometimes has some happy feet in the pocket and some turnovers. Talked about how he can he's being able to do well in the pre-snap reads of man or zone. Now, again, the looks are going to get way more complicated as we go on, but certainly a good start for him.
It certainly is, and that brings up a really interesting question, especially in the city of New York. Look, there's no doubt, I think, that everyone believes in the talent of Saquon Barkley. Right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I believe at one point this summer he was the top or second best-selling jersey in the NFL before he had even played a preseason snap. And what happened on his first preseason snap? He broke one off for 39 yards. So I think the Giants and the Giant fan base specifically feels very good about the future of Saquon Barkley. But Chris Canty, who works for 98.7 ESPN in New York, does a great job with them, played with the Giants, won a Super Bowl, played with the Ravens, was drafted by the Cowboys, did very well there as well, was on the Will Cain show, and I thought he made a very interesting observation about Saquon Barkley. No matter how good he is, will always be judged by what happens to Sam Darnold with the Jets.
I think Saquon Barkley is going to be a fantastic running back, but what does that mean for the Giants over the next couple of seasons while they still have Eli Manning? To me, the pick only makes sense if your organization, your team is competing for a championship over the course of the next 2 years. Otherwise, I don't know that you can justify passing on Sam Darnold in lieu of going for a running back in Saquon Barkley, who you're probably expecting top-end production for the next 6 or 7 years. And especially at a position where the skill set transfers from the college game to the pro game probably the quickest. When you look at what you saw from Alvin Kamara and Kareem Hunt, both of those guys were third-round draft picks. One was Offensive Rookie of the Year. The other one led the league in rushing. I just don't know that the Giants can justify the draft selection using that kind of capital on a running back if they're not in the postseason, if they're not winning in January and trying to get to the Super Bowl.
I think it's a very interesting discussion.
Turn your mic on.
Dang it!
You are a professional.
Sons of friggin'.
I'm with you. First and foremost, let's say this. If you take two players, and given this situation where a team had the chance to draft the one and didn't, and that player was a quarterback. So take a quarterback, running back, the same scenario. Right. Let's take the names out of it because I don't want to put people's names attached to Hall of Fame careers when they haven't done anything yet.
Correct.
But if you go down the line and a quarterback that you could have had becomes a Hall of Famer and the running back that you did take becomes a Hall of Famer, you made a mistake.
Yes.
You made a mistake.
I agree.
Because the quarterback position is the most important position on the field.
And you're more likely to have a longer career as a Hall of Fame quarterback than you would as a Hall of Fame running back.
Again, that you don't think about that in the draft process to say, is one going to become a Hall of Famer? But one thing you do think about is over time. You're not drafting for a rookie year.
Wait a minute. You're talking about time?
Yes, I am. I know.
Go ahead.
So you're saying. So you're drafting for the next decade, not the rookie year.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's even as Sam Darnold starts, the thought that Saquon Barkley would have a better rookie year than Sam Darnold, I think is without question. I think that could happen.
Correct.
Rookie quarterbacks struggle. And if Sam does start at some point this year, at times he's going to struggle. But in the long term, I get exactly what Chris was saying about that it is going to be a lot tied to that no matter how good Saquon is. If Darnold is that good, then you should have thought about that because you have an older quarterback right now. The one thing I'll say on the other side is the running back position has changed. I understand the running back position is becoming a bit outdated. The running back position of today of Le'Veon Bell, of David Johnson,
of Todd
Gurley,
an offensive weapon more.
Yes, it's exactly right. How much they can help. So while I get what Chris is saying, I don't completely want to dismiss the other side of it of how much the running back of today can help a quarterback and help an offense with their ability to run the ball and then when you're a weapon out of the backfield as well.
Let me ask you this simple question. If Sam Darnold ends up being as good as people say he's going to be, and let's say he's the starter for 10 to 12 years for the Jets, Is there anything Barkley can do to justify that would justify the Giants passing on Darnold to get?
It would be if they have basically the same careers. No, I mean you would always have wanted to have the quarterback, and that's why you hear around the draft. As I just said, you're not drafting for rookie year. We hear ceilings. Who has the highest ceiling? Who do we think has that potential to have what we need down the road if we're only going to get another couple of years out of quarterback that we have? We're drafting this guy for a couple of seasons after that. But they drafted for the now because the other side of that, again, as well, Trey, is because you can turn it around.
Yeah.
You can turn it around with draft and free agency. They get a left tackle. They get Hernandez, the guard, and he's a starter. They get Saquon Barkley. So they get people in position. They get a healthy Odell Beckham Jr. to be able to try and be able to make a run. So I get it for the now, but Chris Canty is talking about down the road, and he has a very valid point with that.
Look, just look at what the Cleveland Browns did and didn't do. They passed on. They didn't think Carson Wentz was a franchise quarterback, so they gave up that second pick. And with that pick in the first round, they took Corey Coleman, who was one of the litany of first-rounders that never made it to year 3 in Cleveland. They traded him away to Buffalo. And it's nothing against Saquon, but if Darnold is as good as people think he is, I think people are going to say the Giants made a mistake by passing on Sam Darnold. As good as Saquon Barkley could possibly be.
This has been the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast. You can listen or subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, or just ask your smart speaker to play Golic and Wingo. Plus, you can check the guys out live weekday mornings from 6 to 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN News.